Hi, my name is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to talk about red pill. How are we going to respond to people as they wake up? Coming right up. Okay, so how do we respond to people as they wake up? I purposely talk to many of you and talk you through some areas with that. I sometimes email people. I have people from New Zealand, from Australia, and Ireland, and I have some Germany people, I have UK people, and I have some Canadian people. I would love to see you guys, after everything kind of calms down, really would love to see you. But it relates inside of this thing called Revelations of the Red Pill. So it's a book I wrote, it's on the website, drscottyoung.com, and we're gonna talk a little bit about this that I get into in the book here, okay? The first one is you're gonna have to learn to love your enemies. And you're going, wait, where's that from? It's from the Bible, okay? When you see these people who were supposed to be your enemies, what happens is that they're waking up to the truth. Now there's this guy named Todd, and he was on my Facebook, and he would push against me, and I would say some things. He'd push against me and say some things. And there's another guy named Oliver on my Facebook, and he would do that same kind of thing. And now Oliver is actually taking it a nice way, but Todd got more caustic as he went along. And this was really before the 2020 election. So he would go, and he'd get worse and worse. And then I was talking about, it was specifically after the election, that it got really bad with that. And I had to finally block him. But these people are now waking up. They're realizing that, wait, gas in California used to be $2.50 and now it's $6 a gallon. There's nothing on the shelves. It's feeling like communist state, and it is. And so they're realizing, and see, many of those same people, when I talk to them, they tend to be people who are struggling in the world. And so now they don't even talk about anything. They're just talking about dogs and other things on their Facebook sites or any of their other things. They don't want to talk about political stuff because they know that their narrative is gone away. We need to learn to love these people as they come into this. And I'm going to talk about something that you want to say. So you need to start with questions. See, the first thing that some people want to do is like, told you so. Okay, I understand that's an easy thing to say, but the reality is that just creates more defensiveness. What you need to say, this is super, super important, is this. They're going to come to you and say, how did you know about this stuff? You've been talking to them about this, right? And they're going to say, how did you know about this stuff? The question, you need to ask questions back to them. It's not relevant what you know, it's relevant for what they know, okay? So you have to work within what their knowledge base is. You have to say, why didn't you see it? Well, I don't know. No, you don't get away with just, I don't know. Why didn't you see it? There were evidences. What evidences were out there that were kind of playing in the back of your mind? And they'll go in some way. Well, I noticed that people weren't doing this and that. For instance, let me give you something that my father actually said to me. He had been holed up in the house. He and his wife, my mom, were holed up in the house, and then they finally get out after they've been vaccinated, and they go out and they go to the restaurant for the first time. I said, did you wear your mask? Yeah. And I said, did you walk to the table and she had her mask on too? Yeah. And then did you sit down? He said, yeah. I said, so how come the virus is here, up here, and as you sit down, the virus isn't here? And he said, that's a good point. Okay? So when I talk to someone in that kind of realm, they go, it's like, why did you think that was a great, answer to take off your mask then and while you had it up here versus down here. You see, and you're asking some questions, and you want them to think. You're going, well, I don't know. You don't get to go away with I don't know. You need to have personal responsibility in here. All of us do. We all have to have that I use the statement, come to Jesus moment, where you're saying, what? My thoughts were messed up in that way. So we have to ask these questions. Why? Tell me why. Let's work through their logic points and help them see where their logic was broken. Like that. You might deal with it and say, did you see videos about people who were damaged by the vaccine? Oh, yeah. What did you think? Well, I thought it was a lie. Okay, now you know it's not a lie. What do you think now? Don't place in your information. What do you think about it now? You see, you don't want to be the whole answer for them. They need to be the answer, but you're helping to guide them through the answer. And so as they see, it's like you're guiding them through the forest, but you're not walking all the steps and you're not going, okay, move here, move there, move here, move here. And then they're going to be just trusting only in you. You have to help them have that personal responsibility to think it through. It's really, really important. And this is loving them through. This is loving your enemies with that, in essence. I mean, and sometimes these people have acted like your enemies, whether they're your sisters, your brothers, your friends, a wife. I mean, it's been difficult with this, okay? As you move through that, here's the key that you come to. You will unlock all the way down to this point of fear. Well, I was scared. Good. I appreciate you saying that. This is what I would say. Well, it was fearful, or made me scared. And I said, I understand. But you know what? The world is scary. I mean, there are things that are scary. To get on stage and do a talk, to sing. Listen, I do both of those things, okay? And that's one of the most terrifying things for most people, but it's just not a big deal to me. But that is terrifying, okay? And when you come up to the mortality of your life, now as a person who's actually been through a life and death experience, when I was, at healing experience, and you can watch it on my YouTube video about 2 years ago, I mean, to me, I always say this, to live is Christ, to die is gain. I mean, I kind of got released from that. I'm not saying you're going to be there. I'm not going to say you're going to have that kind of feeling. I'd like you to have that feeling, because the reality is, once you conquer that, there's not much that can hurt you. The reality is it just isn't, okay? But once they have to say, so why were you fearful? What can you do about that fear? You might even go backward and say, has there ever been something that you were fearful of and that you learned that it was something irrational? Let me give you an example. See, facing your fears is really important. And by the way, people have known this forever, okay? But we have this massive fear that kind of comes up. I used to have this fear about being in, an enclosed space. And I really wasn't figuring it out. And then my wife and I were flipping by The Shining, the older one, remember in the 80s, with Jack Nicholson. And late in the movie, he's stabbing through the door, the iconic scene, okay? And I think it's Shelley Winters, if I remember right. She's in there, and she's so fearful, and she sees a small window, and this is part of my fear point, that she couldn't get through that window. She's very skinny anyway, but she finally finds a way to get through the window, and she slides down this massive embankment of snow with that too. And she was struggling through that window. And I always thought about that, because the little small spaces like that too. So it wasn't just the enclosed bathroom, but the small space of getting through the window. And I saw that, and I was just like, it was messing me up. And my wife paused the movie, and I was like, and we weren't watching it, we just watched like that little tiny section. And I was like, that's it. And so we talked it through. My wife's a psych nurse, so I get that benefit. And we talked that through and to help us understand or help me understand what I was fearful. And it just broke it. I mean, when you come up to your fear and you handle it, you realize it's not that big a deal. We have fears about a lot of things. Like, I don't know how to change the tire. And so you get a flat tire and you realize you can fix it. And you have that conquering of that fear. There are lots of little fears. And yet these people have one of the bigger fears here. And what they got to realize is you can't walk around with fear. That's why these idiots in the governments and media are pushing you on vaccines and vaccine and vaccine and vaccine and testing and vaccine and testing and vaccine. I'm like, why are you getting tested? You know, kind of stuff. It's just ridiculous. And so they've got to see that, because they're in this cycle of fear and they just can't move out of it with that too. But they'll be broken of those kinds of things, and they're going to ask the question, and they're walking aimlessly, like a bit of a zombie, okay? And they're going to walk into that situation. You got to help them see what the fear was and see that they can't be fearful of it anymore. It doesn't mean you're not fearful of death. Okay, I don't want to have a painful death, but you have to actually conquer your fears, or it's going to keep messing you up. Because someone's going to take you to that moment. When you free yourself of those fears and you free yourself of these bad logic trails, you're going to find some amazing, cool things that are going to come because of that. So think about this, and I'm going to leave you this last one thing, and I hear this all the time. Authority-based logic is some guy, and I can't even tell you. I mean, some dude at the CDC who's a physician says blah, blah, blah. And a person, I remember seeing this one interview, and the media person, or the interviewer, sitting there, and then she takes a question from a guy in the audience, and he says amazing stuff. I mean, just completely blows this guy up. Instead of answering him, they go, why won't you accept it from this authority figure? And oh, okay. That's how most people do. I'm like, wait a second, he didn't answer the question. You have to answer questions through logic. You don't get to browbeat someone, and that's what authority logic does. And it's the worst logic in the history of the world. Every person who has ever studied logic knows that authority-based logic is the ridiculous logic of the world. We've got to answer claims when they come up. And there are times you don't have the answers. I don't have the answers. We have to admit that, man, I don't know about that. I haven't studied that. I will look into that area. That's okay to say. And we're going to be doing this as a process with these people as they wake up and respond to things. And they're going to ask a question, and you go, I don't know, I'll check that out. I mean, I don't know if I have the answer to that. See if I can get someone that can help you with that. And what it does is it creates a dialogue. And the trust becomes in their people, in their community, instead of the idiots in the government kind of thing. Those two people don't need to be your authority figures. Now, I'm not talking about not obeying the police when they pull you over, okay? I got pulled over because I turned left and I went through a red light and I knew it, right? My thing is, and the guy pulled me over in Arby's parking lot, and I didn't argue with him. I knew exactly what I did. Yeah, yes, sir. You know what? He walks away and just almost has a smile on his face because he's like, I don't have to fight with this guy. I did it. Okay, admit it. What's wrong with that? It's always worked for me, and sometimes I'm not trying to get off. Sometimes I've gotten off because they were like, wow, he's just not fighting me. And other times they just give me the ticket, and I was just like, okay. I mean, there are times you have to kind of look at it that way. I'm not talking about, bad circumstances, illegal ways here, okay? But what I'm saying is that the authority figures are us. When they become part of the community and we become this and we become intermeshed, that we're in Congress and we're in Senate and we're in the presidencies and all these places, they're just the people. We don't put them on a pedestal. And so we have this dialogue back and forth. And when we do that, it is the right way of handling issues. So I hope this helps you about how you might respond to someone who is operating in their own fear and what you might say. Questions, questions, questions to help them think it through. So thanks so much.